It's early in the morning. It's the night after your European premiere. Anything goes.
Yeah.
Listen, congratulations. I was in that room last night, and I haven't been in a room with that energy, both before the film and after, in a long time. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it was just so fun to show it to an audience, because I've been sitting there watching the movie like by myself for 15 times, I think, in the last week, because you got to QC the P3 version, and then the Dolby EDR version, and the IMAX version, and then the IMAX 3D version, and the thing, and then you just sit there watching, and you're like, I hope anyone connects with any of this, and it was nice to be in a room where people did.
When do you know when to stop? Like, when is...
You don't. It's just pencils down at some point. It literally... Because you could keep... we have such incredible effects artists on this movie, and you could keep refining them forever. But at some point, the due date comes up, and you turn it in, and that's that.
It's creeping towards you. It was such a great experience last night. I was so excited. That opening, that kind of opening credits, we all have kind of lived our lives through different versions of that as well. But can we go back to the start in terms of, I loved when you said last night that Kevin had sort of said, do something different. So what was that kind of jumping off point for you in terms of what you jumped into and what you wanted to tell and do differently?
Yeah, I think, my John Watts was my roommate in college, so I've been around some of these movies, and I did second unit on the LA portion of the first Spider-Man. So I knew these guys, and I knew the movies, and I think, coming in, I had a certain understanding and expectation, and knowing from John that they really do want you to push story and make it, they never really stop trying to improve it. That's kind of Kevin's ethos. So I was aware of that, but I don't know that I was expecting how much he really wanted us to push it, and that was such a nice kind of nudge to be given by the head of a studio that has been so successful doing what they do. I think it was just, how can we... Is there a kind of character that we could bring into this world and a story about that character that you haven't really seen before? And when you have Florence Pugh and just starting right there, you're just so lucky to have that. You could really do anything. She really can do anything. And so it was like, wow, if you have that, is there a story we could tell that feels, sort of that dovetails with how talented she is? And I think it started to feel like if it is about these kind of cast-offs or people that thought they were destined for one thing and it didn't work out, what is an internal story that could go with that? And, when Sunny came in and did drafts, and then Joanna eventually after, who had both worked on season 1 of Beef, we really kind of started to hone in on that. Some of those similar ideas in Beef about connecting with the Void, given that the Void is a character in the actual film, and what would, knowing that character is so powerful, what would connect them, in a way, because it was always going to have to come from some point of connection. This is probably more spoilery, so maybe this doesn't work ahead. But that was sort of how we looked at it. As what's a story that we all go through that, I think we're also, something that Sunny has always kind of advocated for, both in Beef and this, is that the idea that stories about depression are not niche stories. Anymore, that everyone at this point is more cognizant of going through that, and that it isn't as strange as it might seem to make a summer blockbuster about a character who's depressed and going through it. That actually isn't. That's broad now. That's a mainstream idea.
Absolutely, and it's the breadth of the tone of the film as well that I just think is extraordinary. You have kind of proper belly laugh out moments. You have kind of those action moments. Then you have those incredibly emotional moments, like Florence and David under the kind of bridge moment, which is genuinely kind of, tears streaming down my face sort of thing, because you kind of, the way these characters have been presented to us, we care about them. They feel like they're, could be our neighbours, could be our friends, could be our family sort of thing. I think that's the wonderful way these characters have been written and presented to us as well. And I can't imagine how that's written, but you have this cast who just bring it to life as well, so beautifully.
Yeah. That was another scene that Sunny wrote pretty much whole cloth. Yeah, when you have Florence and David, I think that, and that humor comes from actors and character. When actors take a character seriously. Yeah. And David, obviously, he provides a lot of comedy in the film. That comedy comes from character. David's not being broad at all. You watch that scene, and it's some of the most kind of nuanced, reserved, beautiful piece of acting that an actor can do, his character is big. You know what I mean? Like he's a character who wants more than he's been given and wants to be this kind of outsized hero. And so that character of Red Guardian kind of allowed us to be a little bit more meta within the world because the character himself is invested in the idea of superheroes and who Captain America is and how he would measure up. And so it allowed us to go in there. But we as a movie really don't step outside of where these characters are. Like we don't kind of break the fourth wall or comment on it. Like it all really like stays with them. And, you know, each of these actors showed up every single day. They take this very seriously. And I think you probably can really only get to that kind of comedy, like that character comedy when they are grounded in that. And I mean, with these, I just felt so lucky every day with them.
Yeah, it's so great. Even that scene where I think it's Ghost, Florence and Captain America, and they're kind of going, "What about the hat?" You know, and all those kind of,
That's full improv, by the way. That is, we did 2 takes. I think I knew that Wyatt was like sort of frustrated with the helmet from Falcon and Winter Soldier. He's talked about that openly, and so I thought it would be funny to prompt Florence to bug him about it. But that's entirely them, and really just I think we did that whole scene in an hour and a half on a day. We had 4 other scenes just in the back. We did 2 takes. We let them go for about 5 minutes each take, and then that's all done. Yeah.
Did you do a lot of that at moments?
Not a lot, but that felt like a moment, and especially like that was a little deeper into the shoot, and they all knew their characters so well at that point, and it felt like, let them go. Like they know what we're going for here. So, yeah.
As well as that kind of range of kind of tone and emotion that we go through, the music's got to kind of be on the journey with that, you know, be a character almost through that for those different relationships, emotions, situations and stuff as well. And Sonlux have done an extraordinary job on that.
Such special musicians. Yeah, it was interesting to kind of, what was so nice about our process on this is that, you know, a lot of movies, quite often what you'll do is you'll go into the edit and you'll get temp music and then you fall in love with the temp music, and then at some point you're basically just asking your composer to copy the temp music. And so a lot of what we're listening to in movies is like a copy of a copy of a copy.
Yeah.
They were so gracious enough to, like, we made so much of this music during the shoot, and they would just send me piece after piece after piece, and we had stems for all those pieces. So by the time we got into editorial, we maybe had 40 sketches, and all of them stemmed out so that Alex Levy, our wonderful music editor, like, we could cut that to picture. So we're temping with their music that they could then iterate on and build more of. And I think, you know, obviously, you're supposed to have character themes. It's hard in a movie with this many characters. And so it was interesting that it became more about finding like a void theme or a commonality of like when characters are going through a certain mood, like what is the music that scores that? And through it being like the same theme, how does that connect them? You know, and that was something that I thought was so nice about what they did. So it became more about like themes for the Thunderbolts, like themes for Val, and then themes for this kind of underneath feeling that they have that connects all of the characters in the film. And we approached it more from that perspective.
Because there's some really, you know, I only saw the film last night, so I kind of have not had that luxury of kind of making notes on things as well. But there was a couple of really poignant moments as well that really sort of stood out in terms of just absolutely breathtaking, stunning, small moments of music in the film that really kind of highlighted the kind of depth of the shared experience, I think, with people going through some of those themes.
Yeah, well, they did such a beautiful job on Everything Everywhere All at Once. And, you know, that's the thing. Like, Kevin's a huge fan of that film. And, again, as part of that edict to make it different, it's like, who could we bring into the world that would see it fresh, you know, and take a new tack at the way that they approach something. And then also because I know Ryan and those guys, and just they're so technically skilled as well. And so much of their music, you know, is orchestral. And so when it needs to be a big Marvel movie, like they can do that too. And it was so fun to get to watch them play with those tools and get there. So again, we always talked about the movie as it starts very different, but by the end you should feel like it lives up to the kind of legacy of these great movies that Marvel has made. It just got there from a different route. And so it was a lot about like, there will be brass eventually, and there will be big themes, but like we've got to really hold it back. You know, like we've got to really, really like let it out piece by piece until you get to the end or those big moments when Bucky arrives and the music really gives it to you, and then you feel it all the more because it hasn't been doing that in the way that you might have expected to before then.
Yeah.
And they did such a nice job of kind of doling that out.
Yeah, that moment last night in the theater when Bucky, that was great.
That's fun. That's fun. Yeah.
All
yeah.
those moments were that doesn't happen very often, particularly in the UK. We're quite reserved.
Oh, okay.
In terms
Good
of
to
how
know.
we.
I wasn't
Oh my
sure,
God,
you
are
know,
you
the
kidding?
big-
I mean, that is a unique experience. I remember being in the States a couple of opening weekends and going, "This is brilliant! Everybody just lets go." That was such a audible response to the film last night. It was, and there's so many moments as well: laughs, cheers, gasps as well, sort of thing.
The gasp that was my favorite. I don't know if we could talk about the
Yeah,
gasp.
no, let's
but I
not.
liked that
Yeah,
one. Yeah.
yeah. I almost did a no moment as well for sure.
Yeah.
How involved does Kevin get in the music? Because across the captain of the ship across this huge vessel, it feels like it's something I've never had the chance to talk to him about it yet, but music feels important to him.
Oh yeah.
In all these different kind of journeys that the world of Marvel's taken us on.
He's a really brilliant editor. I mean, obviously he's got a lot of projects he's working on, and he's not there like every moment of the edit. But when he would come in, he had some really, really intelligent, and it was kind of music editing notes where it's like moments of surprise. Like I think I hadn't quite processed. Like we had built the music up to these moments, and he was like, "Oh, you can't quite do that. You have to have the beat happen on the offbeat of the music or not where it should land, and that'll give you more of the audience surprise." And you could just see the difference in the test screenings. Like these moments that we've been trying to get to land and we're close, all of a sudden we got the gasps. We got those things we were looking for. So like he cares deeply about music for sure. But I think like what, I don't know what the perception is out there. I mean, he's just very open about things, you know, and he really likes filmmakers and is really excited when people bring things that feel new. It felt that way to me the whole time. And then when there is something to work with, then he gets engaged and loves to get in there and get into the edit. And there are a lot of really smart, like little tweaks within scenes or ways to focus in on a different character that he brought to it is really fun.
What about that conversation about needle drops? That's another thing across the Marvel world is like there are some films where it works, some films where it doesn't, some films where there's a little kind of soupçon of a needle drop in there sort of thing. What was the conversation about what you wanted with Thunderbolts in terms of pre-existing music?
I think, it felt like obviously there are movies that this could get compared to, and like everyone knows Suicide Squad or Guardians, and it just felt like James did that so well, you know what I mean? And he kind of owns that corner.
Yeah.
And it felt like in a way to distinguish ourselves, it'd be nicer to take a different tack. And I think partly because we're going for this kind of different, more internal thing, it felt like really working with Sunlux and giving ourselves the real estate with their music to help guide you towards that would be sort of more valuable.
They're almost a bit like their own little collection of musical superheroes in a way, because the three of them have their together they're this wonderful creative kind of explosion, and individually they each bring something slightly different to the table on that as well. And I love that about them in terms of having talked to them in the past for everything. It was like, it's like, oh, this is my strength, but together it's this kind of wonderful kind of synergy in a way.
Yeah. I mean, it's you could kind of try to pick out. It's like, oh, is this Rafiq? Is this Ian? Is this? But in a way, I was like, didn't want to know, because like when it really is the best is when they've all touched it in some way, and it's like it really when it has that, when Ian brings that percussive nature and like Rafiq's melodies versus the way Ryan scores things, and like together. It really does become something special. And
they've got that kind of almost bookend as well, I guess, in a way, which is something they've got to navigate. You've got that opening sequence, and do they get given that to work with, or how does that work? And then also what I love about the Marvel films and those end scenes, will there be, won't there be, will there be one, will there be two, is it makes you sit and stay. And the music on those closing credits is just so beautiful and something that everybody should enjoy. And that was another thing I loved about last night. It almost gives you a moment as well as a fan to kind of take everything in.
Well, and we found we needed that because there's such a left turn at the end of the film that we worked, Imaginary Forces did that great credit sequence with us. And it was kind of about, and this was another thing Kevin weighed in on, where it's like, we need to give them room. It's like the music is almost bringing you along to a form of processing and acceptance of what has just been thrown at you. But what's so cool about that is that they made, just to even get the job, they made a suite of music, you know what I mean? Like for the film, and it was so beautiful, and Kevin and Lou loved it so much. And like I would just listen to it the whole shoot, and I played it at the table read. You know what I mean? It was this nice thing of like, for the actors to get to hear Julia, I would send her pieces of music the whole shoot. Lewis, like when we were going to some of his most emotional scenes, I would have all of these sketches that were going to form the texture of this movie, and they're in the film. You know what I mean? Some of those actual recordings are in the film that you could kind of give to the actors and feel like this was all being made at one time, like as a piece along with it. And that ending music, it's been adjusted a little bit since, but like if I played you that suite, it builds up to that moment like that. And so to finally be editing that and have had it in your head the whole time and shoot it and then have it land in the actual film. Again, I just think it's such a more exciting way of working with music and film, is to start, like when a musician makes music. I was in a band, you know, like you don't take a song and just copy it. That's not like the way that you make music. And so to make film music in that way just feels like it kind of puts a cap on how inventive it could be. But like real great music starts from its own kind of inspiration, and they really, but you have to have composers like Sunlux that are willing to put that time in and do it ahead of time and really put that effort in before, because you might not use it. It may not line up when you actually put it together. But we found when we got into post, in fact, the only pieces of music that worked with the movie were those sketches that they had made ahead of time. It's a hard tone to find.
Was that's amazing. Were they writing to script then? Were they?
Yeah, they had a script, but a lot of it was just, you know, I'd go over to Ryan's. We lived pretty close to each other in LA, and we'd kind of meet up and they'd play things, and I'd be like, I think that feels like it's right, and then they would go off, and they had scripts, and then also we would send them, you know, we had storyboarded sequences and animatics and things like that, and we would send that so they could kind of score to like a version of picture. But
but we have got there is, from my memory from being in it last night, one needle drop.
I guess technically there's two.
Oh, okay.
But you're basically right. Yes, okay. One.
Starship?
One in the, there's Pony though.
Okay, right, okay.
Yeah. Pony, I would say, is like the true, or unless you count, I mean, it's diegetic.
Okay, yeah.
So I don't know if that counts as a needle drop.
I don't know the rules.
I don't know the rules either. We got two. We'll say two. Yeah.
Talk to me about them.
It actually, that was a John idea, John Watts.
Yeah.
You know, when he helped so much on this film, like just checking in with him and having a friend who's gone through it, you know, and been so successful so many times in this world. He was like, oh, you could do this thing in the limo sequence, like that'd be pretty fun. So like the song coming on, and then it was just, I mean, I do love the song Pony. So it was just finding whatever would be. I think we also tried Exile, Kiss You All Over.
Okay.
It was like, so we had that and we had Pony, and I think we just landed on Pony in the end. Like we kind of ran them both, and that seemed to get the best reaction. And then Starship, I mean, that was from the trailers. I mean, obviously I love the song, and I love Bill Hader's dance and Skeleton Twins, and you know, but it just felt like, again, like Alexi gives you that rope to be a bit more meta, you know, like, so it felt like, I mean, that's such a dyed-in-the-wool credit song that might feel a little, you know, like you guys are reaching for this, but coming off of that Alexi beat at the end, it just feels like you kind of, it fits with him and the way he would like to see the team, and then again, once you sink into it, you're like, well, I do love this song. So it's like a nice way to sit through the credits. Yeah.
How does it work with the end scenes? You know, when you're coming into this film, Kevin sit you down and go, okay, we need two? Or, I mean, how does it work?
No, it's quite open. It's very, you know, you kind of know going in that, like, you know, these days there's often two. In this case, we didn't film either of them in principal photography. Like we were, I mean, it's a Marvel movie. We had a lot of resources. I'm very grateful for them. But we did, coming off the strike and, like, you know, some of the shutdown costs, like we did have to keep things responsible and tight, wrapped on time. Actually, a day early, I think.
Well done.
Photography. And so we thought, like, well, in the end, we'll probably know more what we want these to be later. And so we'll film these as part of when we go to do a little bit of additional photography. So the Alexi one came from that. The other one, I don't know if I can say this. I didn't direct that one.
Okay.
That one comes from the set of a movie that is
You're already passing the baton.
I mean, that was something we talked about, is like, how can we And it felt, I got to be there for it, but it came from the set of another film that is currently being filmed. So
it's another thing we love about the world.
Yep.
Absolutely, completely.
Yep.
It's so great. The locations are extraordinary in this as well. You know, in terms of, you know, the reality. You know, we feel like we're in the real world. Is there a location for you whilst making this that you were kind of like, I don't know, whether it was, I can't believe I'm filming here, or this has just worked so perfectly, or how the hell are we going to make this work, and it has, that really stands out for you?
I mean, it'd be two. I think when we went to Utah, that was when it really felt like the shoot opened up for me. You know, we had been in Atlanta, and we tried to take that approach in both ways. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's built on stage, but Grace, our wonderful production designer, we talked about like, sure, maybe in a strange way it feels smaller, but we built massive sets, and it was like, how can we scale the sets to a size that we can build all of, so what's behind their heads is real, as opposed to like, sure, you can have a bigger room, but it's not real, and then you lose touch with that reality. So we tried to keep it, when we were in Atlanta, like mostly builds, things that you would have built anyway, like there is no underground vault, so that was gonna be a build.
Yeah.
We would go out on location for like things that you could build, but it felt like if Nolan were making this movie, you'd find a floor that you could use like an abandoned floor of a building. We don't need to build that floor of Avengers Tower so that you're in a real space and there's stuff out the windows that maybe we augment, but it has a bit more of that texture. And then going to Utah, I mean, that's where you're like, okay, this is special to have the resources. You know, you could use those resources to do, you know, giant space sequences, or you could take it to go out to the middle of Utah where most people don't get to shoot. It's not as big of a tax credit, and really be in a place that almost no one shot before.
Yeah.
You know, like own an entire road in the middle of nowhere and do these stunts for real out on that road, and do the car scene. There's no green screen in that. I mean, they're just driving on that road in 100-degree heat, even just for the dialogue out there. And there's a texture of that comes into the film. We had a real helicopter airlift that box out of there, like up on that hill. That's not CG. The helicopter, so it feels more like Val, gets replaced, but the box itself is being lifted off, and you're tracking to a real helicopter that goes in. And then, when you're on the roof of the second tallest building in the world in Malaysia, it feels like, okay, we're somewhere now. This is something,
Yeah.
So.
And she fought for that, didn't she?
It would not have happened had Florence not. We
Only
talked in the
Florence.
beginning. Yeah, only
Back
Florence.
to what we were talking about.
Well, but I just want to say that you know, I think, look, obviously the stunt is very impressive. But I think when you watch it in the movie, I mean, that shot starts as a close-up on her face when she's going through a real emotional moment. And to know that you have an actress that you need real acting, and then the camera's going to pull out, and within that same take, they have to do one of the scariest things you can possibly do. And I never for a second doubted that she would do it, because when she's in character, she'll do anything. She's so committed to acting and so fearless. I mean, when I asked in the beginning, I was like, how are you with heights? And she's like, I love heights. What are we doing? You know, so she was appropriately scared like anyone would be on that ledge. But I do think that, like, in a weird way, it's more of an acting stunt than it is an action stunt. It's about watching an actress like that be in character for a moment like that and do it all as part of one, so you really follow along with what that character's going to. That to me is more impressive than the simple act of doing it, which is also, sure, it's quite crazy, but I think that's what strikes me.
It's when we see her from the side, when the step off, and the confidence and the silhouette almost, it's just like, you just hold your breath.
Yeah.
There's only one Florence Pugh, and there will only ever be. She is just
I feel I'm a very lucky guy.
Yeah, and there's a really lovely tie-through with the Hacks and Cloak, obviously, who did the music for Midsummer, who worked with you on Beef as well. That's a nice little Florence connection,
it's a great little community of people. Bobby's great.
Just quickly before we finish, congratulations on Beef. I mean, what an astonishing show. Again, performance so important to the kind of to the way that we connect with it, I think, as well. But music on that as well, very important. Very different on an episodic nature as well, which is a different beast in itself.
Yeah. I mean, Sunny also cares so much about music and is so involved in that and creating a texture. And it's interesting because we found, you know, like so much of this movie is Sunny's voice as well. And so like it has that tonal shift. Like you said, there was all these different tones where it is very funny. You know, Sunny wrote on Two Broke Girls and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, but also obviously is quite brilliant and has this artistic perspective. Finding music that can bridge all of that is not easy. You know what I mean? And it takes these great composers like Bobby, like Sunlux, to kind of wrap all of those things into a package that fits together. So yeah, we're working on season 2 right now of Beef. So
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, that's exciting. Oh, wow. Can't wait for that.
Yeah.
Thank you for this.
Thank you.
Thank you for kind of telling their stories and feeling like you're telling kind of a bit of everybody's story as well in this film.
If it felt that way, then that makes us very, very happy. So.
Lovely to chat to you. Thanks so much,
Yeah,
Jake.
thank you so much. Such a pleasure.